Hello everyone, this is Fjarlar and welcome to the 5th challenge battle in the Trails of Cold Steel collab, which is War of the Transcender. Now I realize I'm a little bit late to the party with this video, and that's for a number of reasons, aside from just general laziness. I'll try to explain some of the things I had to prepare to get this fight to work while describing what's happening on screen as well. And my god, this challenge! So the goal of this map is to just kill Geriatric, but that is much easier said than done, because there are two phases to this fight. The first phase of the fight is what you're seeing me do right now, which is where you're fighting against 3 constructs. And you can see the first thing I do is to just have Parn route one of them into the middle. Aside from disabling that really annoying construct that has both Thunder Breath and Acid Burns, the former of which can kill Parn in one hit, and the latter of which is Heal Block, which is always cancer. It also lines them up perfectly for Almeida to just immediately cast Ultimate Quip on all 3 of them, which gives me a variety of debuffs. This is the first truly RNG portion of this strategy. I need Almeida to give out at least 1 or 2 defense or magic defense debuffs here, because without that I'm going to be left with constructs that have like 500 HP left over, and that's just going to make me really mad. It's not as unlikely as it might sound, but it's just really annoying when you have to repeat the stage over and over until you get it to happen. But at least the stage is free to repeat once you finished it one time. So on this first enemy phase, I actually need a couple specific things to happen. I want the constructs on the right to cast Forget, which is something he usually does, but sometimes he just decides to cast Sleep on Chris instead. This happens like 20% of the time. The AI in this game does seem to prioritize casting AoEs on multiple targets if it can, but sometimes it just decides it doesn't want to do that. I also want the center construct to cast Desiccate. Everyone in that group is now heavily injured, but it's not a huge deal because Almeida can just run in and cast Mass Heal, and the Forest Priests are invaluable here due to their ability to remove 1 extra debuff. So here I'm just checking the defense and magic defense stats on these constructs to make sure who can attack what. So this is probably as good a time as any to mention that the first phase of this fight you need to kill all 3 constructs at essentially the same time. Once you knock one of them out, you have 2 more player phases before you need to knock out the other 2. So not quite at the same time, but because the longer you allow them to survive, the more RNG you have to deal with, it is best to try to kill them as fast as possible, which of course also allows you to have more turns for the second portion of the fight. It should also be noted that each of these constructs actually corresponds to one of the Cold Steel characters. If you check their stats, you will actually notice they have identical stats to the Cold Steel characters. So when you finish killing them and they respawn as the Cold Steel characters, you don't need to worry about them being placed randomly. You'll always be able to control where each Cold Steel character is going to appear. And it is very hard to overstress how important it is that you place these Cold Steel characters correctly, because they start attacking you as soon as they spawn. Or at least when you end your turn if you're on player phase still. But that means that there is almost no breathing room in this fight. If you don't place the knocked out constructs correctly, you're just going to instantly die. And that is pretty much the reason you see me doing things like using Griffin Knights on Matthew here. I need to ensure these constructs die at a very specific point in the fight in very specific positions, otherwise they're just going to run all over the place and I won't be able to control the fight at all. Obviously the Griffin Knights will make Geriatric die faster too, but it's probably better to have Angels in this case if I can, because there's just a lot of magic damage flying around in this fight. Oh, by the way, you can see that this construct right here got Deterring component. Combined with Dark Dragon Breath, that's actually sometimes enough to just straight up kill some of my units here. Pretty much depends on if the game decides I get to take a bunch of critical hits or not. The debuffs, however, are not a big concern because I brought Dispel on Chris. So from here I would just want to beat up on this construct a little bit. I need to make sure Oliver can take him out as the first action of the next turn, and then everyone else can use their turns to just get the hell out. And this of course is the absolutely butt-blasting RNG in this fight, because of course these enemy constructs can get the renovations that they normally can get in the player's hands as well. That of course includes the 40% HP recovery at the end of every turn, which of course is just awful to deal with. So these constructs have a 50% chance to get 1 random renovation every single time they deal damage to you. That translates over to an approximate 8% chance that they'll get that stupid regeneration buff every single time they deal damage. And honestly, for this particular strategy, if they roll that buff, it is basically game over. Even for a fully decked out SSR team, that is a very, very annoying buff for them to get. So one of the most common strategies that you see people do on this map is to simply cast Decay on all of them. Unfortunately, I do not have that option here because Decay is an SSR exclusive spell. Oh, by the way, you can see that on screen right now, Oliver has gotten an extra +3 movement from Chris. I'm not going to be taking advantage of that here because, as usual, I'll try my best not to take advantage of breezes, just to try to keep the strategy as reliable as I can reasonably get it. Anyway, for me, it actually took me like close to 2 hours to get my first clear on this map, and that was when I had to work with all my decked out SSR units and stuff. So at first, I wasn't even sure that this fight was going to be possible, limiting myself to SR units. So speaking in very general terms, there are essentially 2 major strategies you can use to tackle this fight. The first one is the kiting strategy, which I think the majority of players actually ended up using, and it's also going to be a strategy I'm using here. Essentially, this strategy involves just spawning the Cold Steel characters in a way so that they will follow one unit that has enough movement to just string them along the rest of the fight. Now, this is much easier to do when you have SSR units available to you because there are all kinds of movement and trapping effects that you can use to make sure the constructs are exactly where you want them to be before you kill them. And of course, SSR units tend to have better options in general just for DPSing and support units. So right here you can see that because of the lack of movement I had to bring Iris in just to teleport Almeida out of the way. But of course that leaves Iris herself in a great deal of danger. She's going to be able to tank one hit from Altina thanks to Bolt Rangers, and then Arian Rod's going to come in to finish her off. So I apologize to the lowly gods because right here I am just going to make Iris into a sacrificial lamb. But thanks to Iris' sacrifice here, I'm going to be able to get out of the way and set up the kiting strategy. So I mentioned earlier that there's actually a second major strategy, which I think almost nobody tried, but I did talk to a couple guildmates and a couple of them did do it this way, and I tried it myself once and I can confirm that it is possible. And that of course is the quote-unquote proper way of doing this fight, which is to just fight Gizerov and his ads straight up. So basically the way this fight is supposed to work is that you're supposed to knock out the three ads, Reen, Altina, and Arian Rod. Oh, by the way, the Cold Steel characters in this fight work very similarly to the constructs you have to fight in the first phase of the fight. They don't die when you defeat them, they just get knocked out for 3 turns. Anyway, when all 3 of them are knocked out at the same time, Gizerov will get a status that is a buff/debuff combined into one. It increases his intelligence by 30%, but also reduces his defense and magic defense by 15%. This status lasts 6 turns and it can actually be stacked. So what you're supposed to do is that you just get a bunch of these stacks onto him, and while this makes him very dangerous, it also means he has very low defense, and he starts taking like 100,000 damage per hit. And this method actually results in a much lower turn count to finish this map, but is also incredibly risky. After doing the method myself with my SSR units, I came to the conclusion that trying to do it with SR units is pretty much impossible unless you just have like God enchants or something. But let's get back to this kiting strategy. You can see that Arian Rod already got 2 stacks of her talent by attacking Iris earlier, and now she's gotten her 3rd stack from chasing Oliver. And it is precisely for this reason that I brought Oliver, because Oliver is just going to use Plunder on her and steal all her stacks away. And now Oliver can run 8 spaces. So the inclusion of Oliver and Parn in my strategy is one of the reasons that it took me a little while to release this video. I actually didn't have either one of them built up, at least not fully yet, so I had to wait until the middle of the week, when my guild closed our first Guild Wars of the week. And I quickly spammed the second Guild Wars so that I can get a bunch of guild points and finish off your class mastery. I also had to spend a couple Gate of Fates on Oliver because I hadn't unlocked his 4th and 5th bond yet. So I had to run through Night of Mysteries, Gate of Fate, which I had not done yet. But thankfully it paid off because obviously you're watching this video right now and I would not have released this video if this was not a successful clear. But yeah, Oliver OP. As for Parn, I realized that as I was planning out this strategy, that Parn was actually a perfect fit for what I needed. First off, he has massive mobility once he gets his talent stacks, which he will easily get in a long fight like this one. He receives the protagonist buff from Matthew, which is very convenient, and he has a combination of a displacement and a stun skill in Rout, as well as a dispel skill in Roar. I mean, there are a couple other characters and even SR characters that actually have these abilities as well. Sonya and Emmerich have Rout, Lewin and Kirikaze have Roar, and even Layard has Smash if I really wanted to bring him. But like I said, Parn was just the absolutely perfect mix of all of these qualities at the same time, and Parn's a pretty good DPS himself. So I usually try to avoid using the collab freebies if I can because they are limited units, but in this case Iris and Parn were so important to this strategy that I just could not do this without them. I'm also going to be breaking another rule I usually try to set for myself right here. You're about to see me use a charge of the Clock of Forgiveness. Usually I try to get a take of me doing the stage without using the Clock of Forgiveness because I feel like that's usually the best way to show that a strategy is at least somewhat reliable. In this case, I'm going to be using the clock to undo a really dumb mistake that I ended up making here. Usually when I'm running away from Gizerov here, he summons his construct above him so I can just normal attack it. And here I saw him summon it below him, so I just got kind of confused and had a brain fart, so I just left it alone. And I also completely forgot to use Roar on Gizerov so I can get rid of all those stupid buffs on him. So that just ends up getting me killed. So yeah, I just rewind the clock a little bit so I don't have to do the first part of the fight again. You know, I'm sorry for having to use the clock, but I really didn't want to have to redo the fight again. I've gotten so far already. But yeah, the first section of this fight is by far the most chaotic and very dangerous and unreliable. Like I said, with SSR characters, like you can use like Luna or Layden, You can use a number of characters who can increase your movement or lock down enemy movement, which allows you to control the spawn of the Cold Steel characters a lot more safely. So puzzling that out with the SR team was probably the hardest part. From here on out, the rest of the strategy is mostly just an heroic protagonist team surrounding an old man and beating him to death, while Oliver does his best to just run around and kite the enemies and make sure Aaron Rod doesn't get too close to the group, and when she does, I can just do a little bit of movement shenanigans to make sure she does not aggro my main team instead of just going after Oliver. Chris is also going to be heroically sacrificing herself for the greater good. Thanks a lot, Chris. You were very useful in the first part of this fight, but I hope you dream of many, many Ladens. And hopefully you'll get an SP class as well. But yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot else left to say, so I'm just gonna let you enjoy the rest of the video, and I'll be back at the end.
した力は誰にも止められん。
準備はバッチリさ。
ここ
行くぞ。始めようぜ。
ここよろしくお願いしますね。
準備はバッチリさ。行くぞ。次の目標は何？決めたか？次の目標は何？準備はバッチリさ。
何かお手伝いできることありますか？いくよ
ー。次の目標は何？始めようぜ。行くぞ。正確に決めたか？一緒にピンチを切り抜けるんだ。始めようぜ。
超越した力は誰にも止められん。
準備はバッチリさ。
何かお手伝いできることありますか？いくよ
ー。次の目標は何？始めようぜ。行くぞ。決めたか？
灰となっている。
準備はバッチリさ。始めようぜ。行くぞ。始めようぜ。
ここいくよ
始めようぜ。次の目標は何？準備はバッチリさ。決めたか？行くぞ。
何かお手伝いできることありますか？よろしくお願いしますね。
決めたか？行くぞ。決めたか？
灰となって吹き飛べ。
次の目標は何？ たか。
ここここ。よろしくお願いしますね。
決めたか。行くぞ。決めたか。行くぞ。正確に決めたか。準備はバッチリさ。決めたか。行くぞ。
何かお手伝いできることありますか。行くよ
行くぞ。
超越した力は誰にも止められぬ。
新規合意。次の目標は何。決めたか。
何かお手伝いできることありますか。行くよ
始めようぜ。行くぞ。
灰となっている
次の目標は何。始めようぜ。行くぞ。決めたか。行くぞ。
ここここ。よろしくお願いしますね。
次の目標は何。決めたか。行くぞ。始めようぜ。
ここここ。行くよ
超越した力は誰にも止められぬ。
準備はバッチリさ。始めようぜ。
何かお手伝いできることありますか。よろしくお願いしますね。
始めようぜ。行くぞ。正確に決めたか。
Alright everyone, we've made it to turn 24 now. And it's been a long road, but we are finally on the final turn for this map. So let's just set up to finish off this old man. Let's just have Matthew air slash this guy and bring him down to low health. And let us give the honor of finishing this guy off to Parn, who is one of the MVPs for this map. And why don't we finish this off with a bang by turning on the animations and watching Parn do his most heroic knightly act yet, which is beating the crap out of an old man. Alright, let's go Parn! Alright, so I know this video probably wasn't as useful as a guide as some of the other videos I've made before because most of these characters are ones you probably have never raised. But I'm hoping you guys at least found this entertaining, because simply watching this finished video is not enough to tell you just how many runs of this fight I had to do to get this right. But anyway, thanks for watching, I'll see you guys next time.